Nothing is more than a slap in the face than a bad ending to a good series. Well, a slap in the face could probably hurt more. But take for example shows like Erase, with truly bad endings that have made fans pretty much 180 on their feelings for the show altogether. Bad endings are the climax without the finish, a rock song without a guitar solo, or pizza that's just too greasy to eat. And as you've seen from the title, Yesterday seems to fall into that category based on the fandom's reaction to the anime. But I have to ask, is Yesterday's ending really that bad? Well, I hope to shed some light on this topic for viewers who may not know what to think or simply want to hear a more balanced and thought out opinion on the matter. So, Yesterday's ending, is it really that bad? Before we just jump right into the criticisms, we have to set up this ending. A couple things that you may not know about. So, Sing Yesterday to Me is based off the manga of the same name, and it's 114 chapters long, receiving a special last chapter just recently. And with the show being 12 episodes, you just know they aren't adapting 114 chapters into, that few episodes. But it's also important to mention that there was some false information which came out about this show based on a poor translation. Someone on the internet translated an article which seemingly stated that the series would be 18 episodes, with 6 extra episodes being exclusive to a Japanese television network streaming service. This of course was false information, and even fooled me into thinking that Yesterday would indeed have 18 episodes altogether. But near the ending of the show's run, the corrected information came out, and it was revealed Dogo Koba's Sing Yesterday to Me would only be 12 episodes in length. Disappointing, but what about those 6 episodes? Was it all just a lie? A miscommunication even? Well, in reality, these 6 episodes were in fact just 6 short clips which were cut from the anime's original airtime. If this is news to you, I will leave a link in the description below to all of the extra scenes that were cut. I recommend you watch them before you even continue along with this video. I'll be waiting. I can wait. Now I'm glad you're back, but this information is extremely important to this video, and while it's not fair and should not be defended per se that these were cut, I do think you should seek these clips out, as many of them will make the story of Yesterday better. And before you ask, my argument isn't that Yesterday's ending is good just because of the final clips. No, that would be a poor argument. But all of this setup here is a part of the argument that Yesterday's ending is perfectly fine, and many of the show's criticisms are being overblown. But why is that? Episode 11 of Yesterday sees Ro confronting Rikuo and Shinako. Ro, until this point, wasn't told by Shinako that she is seeing Rikuo. Ro feels betrayed, duped, so on and so forth, as expected of his character and any real human being. He even says himself he was a chump for not noticing Shinako and Rikuo before, which makes sense. Rikuo and Ro never really interacted with one another regularly speaking, so it makes sense why over the large amount of time the show takes place, he wouldn't have noticed Shinako liking Rikuo as much as she did. Then we see a time skip of sorts, which happens almost all of the time in this anime. If you really haven't paid attention, you won't notice we have passed a significant amount of time between episodes 1 to episodes 12, and this is really no different as a good amount of time passes here. Haru misses Rikuo and is lonely. Ro is away, and Shinako and Rikuo start their new relationship by then. This doesn't all happen within a span of a week or two. But Shinako and Rikuo agree to meet in a beautifully made park, and good on Dogo Koba for producing such fine art here. Here they both essentially start by talking about the good old days. Rikuo talks about how he put off finding a job, so he worked at the convenience store. But above all, he still can't believe he's in a relationship with Shinako, the person he's had a crush on for years. But Rikuo gives her that look, a look many of us know, and even Shinako knows what's about to come. Rikuo was worried that all of this doubt he was feeling was just a bad habit, that since things finally started to look up for him and he got used to his position in life, his brain was sending him these false signals. He didn't know whether or not this was a feeling that could be trusted, but what occurred to him through all of this was that he couldn't say I love you to Shinako in any proper way. He came to the conclusion that he didn't love Shinako. He loved the idea of loving Shinako more than anything else. Shinako, on the other hand, feels like she's done something terrible and has ruined a relationship that she's had since high school with Ro and his family. She even says that to her. Ro is her family. Saying this, all while crying, puts this into perspective that Shinako values Ro, his late brother, and their father so much. But her problem was that she couldn't face Ro like a person. She couldn't treat him like the person that he is, and she would always deflect or protect anything from Ro, even though it was staring her in the face sometimes. And the realization at the end of all of this is that they're just better friends than lovers. They're too similar. That's something that happens to many people. In the moment and on paper, this scene is perfect. It's a beautiful moment between two good friends realizing they just can't love each other in the way that they'd want to. They wanted something more, but most importantly, they both wanted something completely different. Not only that, but they didn't communicate effectively until this point. That's a red flag. And they only started communicating until the very end. Shinako not telling Ro, Rikuo not feeling confident in his interactions with Shinako. There was always this sense of sadness or awkwardness when they were together, but it took them a very long time to realize just what they needed, and that is what Shinako told Rikuo in episode 1, to be friends. And like Shinako said, they took the long way, but they got there, and now they're better for confronting their feelings and handling them like adults would. When Rikuo said they couldn't keep worrying about what the other is thinking, well damn, that was beautiful. A real moment, a true moment. I loved it. And there are no issues with this scene to me, one bit. It just showed to me why this series got the praise it did in the first place. Amazing character writing with attention to smaller details and presenting an adult story that isn't just about the prettiest or most popular girl winning, which I think is a little reductive to reduce an anime like this to something like Waifu Wars BS, but there are issues with the last half of this episode, though I think they're being blown out of proportion, and that is Shinako getting with Ro. So the issue I personally have, and what most others have with this ending, is Shinako getting with Ro. Now, on the surface, I don't really have an issue with it, honestly. Ro is a fine character, and just admit it, you'd also act the same way he does if you were that young and in the same situation. I know I certainly would. There is absolutely no shame in that either, and there is no shame for Ro's character or the way he was written. He's a fine character, and he's a solid character, but the issue I have is that Shinako gets with Ro without ever confronting Ro about his childish and immature ways. Shinako didn't have that moment with Ro that she had with Rikuo, if that makes sense. Continuously, throughout the anime, he acts basically as if Shinako is his woman, and it'll eventually be that way anyways because he's taken the place of his brother. The issue is that we've not seen much of Ro with Shinako beyond certain moments that boil down to him being frustrated with his place. The ending here doesn't help because it basically skips all of the character development where you see Shinako not bend to Ro's whims and coddle him, and for Ro, you don't see him grow and realize he's being immature and is woefully inexperienced in love and people, and that he should really calm down just a little bit. Calm down, man. So this ending essentially suggests that Shinako has bent the knee and goes along with Ro's whims. She hasn't grown, he hasn't grown, and she's now in a worse place than she would have been if she had just stayed with Rikuo. Their relationship will become very toxic as there is no communication between one another like there wasn't with Rikuo and Shinako, except this is much worse because there's baggage here. Rikuo is a teenager who's still recovering from his brother's tragic death. Shinako hasn't either, obviously, and that's sort of the issue here with the show's ending. It's the main criticism of it. But I have to ask, does this make the show a slap in the face? A complete miscarriage of a story? Does it ruin literally everything that came before it? All 11 episodes, all the time we spent on this show watching it together. Well, I think that's a complete overreaction to the story, and it doesn't appreciate what the story set out to do and actually what it achieved rather well. A sloppy ending that's a little rushed isn't the same as an ending so bad it makes everything before it non-existent. That's not a fair or leveled reaction, it's an emotional reaction. Logically speaking, Rikuo and Haru's relationship ended perfectly. It made sense. Yes, a little rushed, but it's only 12 episodes after all. What can you expect? As well, Shinako and Ro's relationship and them ending up together was pretty obvious from the beginning and was flawed in execution only at the end, though. But you know what? I don't want a convoluted anime just to subvert my expectations. Every story has been done before. Simple stories with simple, obvious endings I will take 9 times out of 10 over shows like It Invaded, which are sort of convoluted. And I have nothing against the show, that's just an example of a show that I dropped because I felt it was going in that direction. And some of the best stories are the simplest ones, that's a fact. And yesterday's ending kind of plays on that, and it's fine. It has criticisms which can be leveled against it, but you have to level them fairly, because when I see people say this is an abomination or a slap in the face, I have to question what they wanted to get out of the show in the first place. And as well, if you want more context, there are 6 shorts you can watch to give more context to pretty much every big moment. There's a manga that's 114 chapters. Do I think that they should have added those shorts to the regular runtime? Yes. Do I think the episode should have been longer? Yeah. Do I think it should have been 18 episodes? Hell yeah. But let's not act like yesterday is some travesty, because it's not. And to call it that is unfair and undeserving. In my opinion, I think 2 more episodes, just focusing both on Shinako and Ro, respectively, with Haru and Rikuo on the side, would have quelled any real negative reception this show has gotten. In closing, I understand where people are coming from. I want to be perfectly clear. I'm not attacking anyone with a different opinion. This is just conversation, a discussion. But was yesterday's ending really that bad? I just can't agree with people that say it is. So, no. But if you have criticisms of the show's ending, and if you don't like how it was rushed, then that's fair. I have the exact same criticisms. But we have to stop acting like a rushed ending is the same thing as a bad ending. It's just not. You know what is good about Saying Yesterday for me? Something that we really should be praising this show for? The anime of the year were the voice acting and casting. The insane production values that almost rival KyoAni from Dogo Koba. The spectacular writing for all of the characters, both main and side characters like Minato and Chika. This show is easily anime of the year and anime of the season material. And I just hope that an overreaction like this doesn't ruin some people's expectations and turns them off before they even get into an otherwise fine or okay series. Because I absolutely recommend Saying Yesterday for me to everyone watching this video if you somehow haven't already. So with that being said, I hope that came off well. I hope you guys understood where I was coming from here. I wasn't trying to say that your criticisms are wrong. My issue with a lot of what I'm seeing of the blowback of this series is that a lot of the criticisms I felt were not leveled fairly. And I wanted to make this video to basically say, yes, your criticisms are valid. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. I'm not saying that you should like it or should hate it or should think it's good or bad. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that we should separate emotions and these kind of reactions. I do believe these things are valuable, but we should also take a step back, look at the show. Was it really that bad? Just because the ending was a little rushed, does that mean that the whole thing was not worth it? I just don't think so. I don't think it's worth it to bomb a whole series just because of one small rushed aspect. Not very logical to me. But I do have to ask, what do you guys think about yesterday's ending? It's a topic that everyone's discussing right now, so I'm sure many of you have opinions, and I do really want to hear about this, especially if you've read the manga, because that's something I'm trying to get into lately, is reading the manga for yesterday, because I actually want to see the dynamic between Ro and Shinako develop. So definitely, I want to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments below about yesterday, its ending, or its show in general. I wanted to actually discuss more about this show, and sadly, I just don't think I'll be able to. Maybe sometime in the future, I'll give it a proper review after I read the manga and I do some kind of special video for it, maybe. We'll see. But with that being said, I want to thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure to like and favorite. Wait, You don't favorite anymore. This isn't 2009. Make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Become a channel member if you want to. And I have a Patreon where you get early access to everything. And as well, I have a Teespring where you can buy some t-shirts and support me there. Thanks everybody for watching the video. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.